Now, for me, this is truly a problem in part two. In part one, the fights are way more creative. Yes, they do give power ups, but when they, it feels like when they gave, it feels like when they gave out, it feels like when they gave Luffy Gear 5. Yes, it was a really cool moment, and yes, it had a lot of foreshadowing and all. It didn't felt like it didn't felt like it didn't felt like Gear 5 was actually a mechanic. It didn't felt like Gear 5 was a mechanic in Luffy. It didn't felt like Gear 5 was a mechanic for Luffy. It just felt like a win button. All that build up just for all that bit kind of was built up for many chapters. All that just for him to all that for him to lose all that for him to lose ridiculously. The animation was fire though. I actually really love fights like Rob Lucy or my favorite fight, Usopp versus Luffy. Usopp versus Luffy is the best fight because the stakes are high and we actually see good character development and extremely good strategy from Usopp. It shows that when Usopp is really pushed, he will be brave and fight for what he thinks is right. When was the last time you ever saw Usopp locking in the way he was locking it against Luffy? And you can tell that Usopp, even though he was friend with Luffy, he was still scared of fighting him. But now in part two, he doesn't even. Oh my god! But now in part two, he barely wants to fight. He my last problem. My last problem is the characters and the consequences. Apart apart from apart from Ace dying, I don't feel like the apart from Ace dying, I don't feel like there was actually like a bunch of I don't feel like there was a bunch of consequences. Mostly when people die, mostly when people die, they're like mostly when character dies, they're not as an important. Mostly when character dies, they're just unimportant. Nobody in the Straw Hats ever dies or like an important person to the Straw Hats. Nobody really cared about the samurai guys. Now what about the Straw Hats? Now when now what about the Straw Hats? Well, I'm pretty mixed. The mostly all the backstory of the mostly all the mostly all the backstory of the Straw Hats are basically amazing. It's more like their development and the regression of their characters. I used to really like Luffy Part One. In he, I used to really like Luffy Part One. He he act yes, he was extremely positive, but he gave out those reaction that like yes, he was really positive, but he's yes, he was really positive, but he was still like a 17-year-old. He gave out he gave out realistic reactions, especially in Water 7. I love the immaturity and the maturity of Luffy. We saw him doubt his decision, cry, crumble. this shows like a this was showing like a really human side of Luffy. And I feel like out of all of the main characters, and I feel out all, and I felt like, and I feel out of all the main characters, Luffy has the least changes when it comes to like his when it comes to part one and part two. That's why like I'm not too mad at it, but that's why I'm not too mad at it. But in part two, he kind of feels like in part two he kind of feels like invincible, not in this not power wise, but emotionally wise. We never really see him like break down or doubting himself. I'm not asking him to. I'm not asking him to cry like a baby, but I am asking him to doubt himself like he used to in part one from time to time. Sanji, man, what the hell happened to Sanji? Sanji used to be so cool, man. He respected women. He respected women. He respected women and had his own code. And even though you thought that his code was kind of stupid, you understand why he had a code. And in Whole Cake Island, we get to see like the old Sanji back, but like the second the Whole Cake Island ended, he kind of went back to like the bad. He kind of went back to like the bad version of him. Now he's a borderline just a pervert and like a comic relief. Like I can't, I think people use. I think people forgot that Sanji was basically the third head. I think people forgot that Sanji was basically the third head of the crew. Nami picked Nami. Nami peaked really early, and even though I don't think she has too much to do anymore, I do think that her character has stayed mostly the same, and that's why I have the least to say about her. She's a navigator, and believes in Luffy because of what Luffy did for her. But again, all this happened in part one, and in part two, outside of the first arc, there's not that much to. Outside of the first arc, there's nothing too much. Outside of the first arc of part two, there isn't that much that really happens. Frankie, no. Frankie, Frankie. Now this is really personal for me. I never really liked Frankie. Frankie was really cool in Water 7, and I didn't even know he was actually gonna join the crew because he didn't really feel like a good fit, to be honest, but I don't mind him at the same time. But also, outside of Water 7, what did Frankie actually did? What did Frankie actually do? You could say that the role of Frankie was being the dad, but what about Jinbei? Jinbei doesn't really have a role in this crew. He felt more like a crewmate to Ace than Luffy, to be honest. I guess you could say that Jinbei is more like a small guide for Luffy, but even that's a stretch, to be honest. And Jinbei came in the crew like so late, it kind of felt like pointless. I kind of like Jinbei in small doses, to be honest. And again, since Frankie is supposed to be the dad of the crew, what about Jinbei? He almost he almost like he almost act like he almost acts like a dad to he almost acts like a dad too, but like more of a chill dad, I would say. But he doesn't really have a role in this show. Zoro. Zoro is really cool. And to be honest, this has been like more of a problem in part one. He never really had his own arc. Yes, his backstory is really well made and all, but I felt like Zoro was really but I felt Zoro was really only there for one thing, to fight. And even though his fights are always look really good, that's basically the only thing he has to do. And I was really disappointed in Wano. I felt like in Wano, Zoro was supposed to do something bigger or find something about himself. But no, again, he was just there to fight a minority. Robin. Robin was Robin was one of my favorite characters added to the crew. She was built up extremely well. We saw a few glimpses of her backstory bit by bit, and it kind of exploded in Water 7. Her crying out and saying that she wants to live is one of the peakiest moments in One Piece. But what about after part 1? Well, she doesn't have too much to do, to be honest. She had a new form, and the giant guy for her backstory is now alive, which which is completely fake development. That giant should have stayed dead. That giant that giant should have stayed dead. Chopper. Mm, I used to really like Chopper, to be honest, but Chopper basically I used to really like Chopper, but Chopper isn't even the same character as in part 1 and part 2. Chopper used to be a very serious little guy, to be honest. He wasn't a mascot like in part 2. He had a backbone. Yes, he was cute. And he used to be like one of the heavy hitters of the crew, to be honest. The way I saw Chopper, it was basically the balance of the group. He was smart, but he was also goofy, but he could also get really serious really fast. And I love his power system. That giant form that giant form had so much aura, bro. And it was also a big and it was also a high risk high reward type of it was also a high risk high reward fight. It was also a high risk high reward type of ability. But let's be honest, when was the last time you actually saw Chopper having a good fight in part 2? Yeah, never. You can say that a lot for most of the you can say that a lot for most of the crew, to be honest. Usopp. Usopp Usopp was a very simple character. He was supposed to be a coward that grows up to be a strong warrior. And to be honest, Usopp was already a great warrior from the jump. Matter of fact, I think Usopp is a way better character in part 1 than in part 2 when it comes to warrior. When it comes to being a warrior. Every time that Usopp was really pushed and really wanted to protect his friend, he stopped. He would stop being a coward and locked in. But what about in part 2? Every time in part 2, he's trying to run away or being a or is being a coward. I can't even remember a good. I can't even remember a cool moment for Usopp, to be honest. In part two, all of his cool moments, all of his cool moments in all of his cool moments are in part one, especially in Water 7. Usopp peaked in Water 7. They showed everything that you needed to know about Usopp. His cowardness and his bravery. He showed his insecurity to Luffy and he apologized. He shows his insecurity about Luffy and his bad side about him. But he also shown the beautiful side of he also shown he also shown he also shown the best part about him. I love Usopp so much in part one because he was very flawed like a normal person. He wasn't this perfect guy like most of the other characters. But in part two he's only bad now. And also, I think Usopp is supposed to be African, and yeah, that kind of looks bad. But anyways, I think One Piece is still an amazing series with an amazing story, to be honest. But it has shown a few cracks compared to part one. It's like eating a food from Gordon Ramsay and then getting a perfect dish from somebody else. Yes, the dish itself is still better, but you're not gonna compare yourself to fucking Gordon Ramsay, are you? But yeah, that was the video. That was a quick video, to be honest. I will focus more. But yeah, that was the video. Uh, but yeah, that was the video. I'll focus more. Yeah, but yeah, that was the video, and but yeah, that was the video. This was just. But yeah, that was the video. This was just a quick video to keep you guys entertained. But I will start to focus more on the boys and Invincible, and eventually I will come back to anime. But don't forget to subscribe and thank you for the fucking support. Jesus Christ, man. And thank you for the support. I I just woke up and realized that I just woke up and realized that there were so many views in my latest video, so I really appreciate you guys coming in.